When Viktor Orbán rose without a word and left the European Parliament that day, for a moment it seemed as if the entire political stage of Europe had come to a standstill. The members fell silent, the soft hum of the chamber died away, and all eyes turned almost instinctively toward the Hungarian Prime Minister, who strode steadily toward the exit. It was a moment that needed no commentary. It spoke for itself. Cameras zoomed in, microphones adjusted, photographers were ready in a fraction of a second. Within seconds, the moment was documented, preserved, and poised to circulate across Europe. Just moments before, Friedrich Merz, known for his sharp rhetoric, had addressed the topic of national sovereignty. It was not the first time Merz had chosen provocative words, but this time his statements acted like a spark in an already explosive atmosphere. His formulations struck at long-simmering tensions between Berlin and Budapest. Yet Orbán did not respond with words. He said nothing, showed no expression, raised no voice. Instead, he relied on perhaps the strongest form of political expression: demonstrative silence. He stood, looked at Merz with unwavering focus, and left the chamber. That silent protest echoed more strongly than any debate. For some observers, it was merely political theater. For others, it was a deliberately calculated symbolic gesture, a signal that Hungary's patience had run out. The fact that the footage of this moment spread around the world in record time was due not only to its drama, but also to its significance. Headlines such as "Cracks in Europe's Foundation" or "Orbán Questions EU Unity" appeared almost simultaneously in multiple languages. What seemed like a simple gesture was, in reality, the result of years of tension and potentially the start of a political rift that would occupy Europe for a long time. Orbán's gesture was far from spontaneous. Diplomats had long warned that relations between Berlin and Budapest had become fragile. Behind closed doors, insiders spoke of increasing estrangement between Germany and several Eastern European states. The conflict went far beyond differing political visions. It was about fundamental questions. Who decides the direction of the EU? How much sovereignty can member states still claim for themselves? And how much influence remains for those who do not follow the Western European majority line? Merz's insistence on a clear, unified European stance on that particular day appeared almost provocative. In many Eastern European capitals, such demands had long been perceived as expressions of Western condescension. While Berlin and Paris pressed for common positions, countries like Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia increasingly felt marginalized, as if they had to constantly justify their political course. When Orbán stood up and left the chamber, it was recognized in Eastern Europe not just as a personal gesture, but as a collective one. And indeed, the impact of his departure was immediate. The moment became a political earthquake that a long-standing EU member openly protested against a senior German politician struck at the heart of the European idea. The much-proclaimed unity suddenly seemed fragile, the cracks unmistakable. While the video of the incident went viral, the Hungarian government issued a brief but sharply worded statement. It spoke of impertinent behavior by German politicians and unconcealed arrogance. The words were precise and deliberate. It was not just a response to Merz. It was a message to the entire continent. Particularly in Eastern Europe, it was heard loud and clear. Warsaw media immediately picked up the event, interpreting it as a sign that the East-West divide was widening again. Commentators publicly asked whether the old Western member states truly intended to politically marginalize countries like Poland, Hungary, or Slovakia. On social media, the video spread at lightning speed. Keywords like East versus West, Orbán's silent rebellion, or the day the EU mask fell trended for hours. For Brussels, this was a PR disaster, as the footage revealed something the European Commission had long tried to obscure: the growing dissatisfaction of many member states with Western European political leadership. For Orbán, however, it was a strategic triumph. Many citizens in his home country saw it as proof that Hungary was confidently asserting its position. Even more concerning was what was happening behind the scenes. For months, several Eastern European states had been discussing alternative cooperation models, networks beyond Brussels' dominant role, a Europe within Europe, as some put it. Leaked documents already referenced secret meetings between Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, aiming to strengthen economic and energy partnerships without relying on lengthy approvals in Brussels. In this context, Orbán's silence took on a new dimension. His departure was not only a moment of political symbolism, but potentially a deliberate signal to Eastern partners. The era of quiet discontent was ending. The time for open positioning was approaching. For Brussels, this was a heavy blow. The idea of internal fragmentation was not new, but now it seemed tangible. And Friedrich Merz inadvertently fueled the fire further. Just hours after the incident, he told the press that Eastern Central Europe showed a lack of democratic maturity. Words that in Prague, Warsaw, and Budapest sounded like provocation. Instead of de-escalation, Merz chose sharp attack, confirming every prejudice the East held about Western politicians. Hungary reacted promptly and decisively. An official spokesman stated that they would not be taught lessons by German know-it-alls. In Hungarian media, the phrasing sparked enthusiasm. The incident strengthened Orbán's domestic position but deepened diplomatic fractures within Europe. Meanwhile, Brussels struggled to regain control. Every attempt seemed futile. When Chancellor Olaf Scholz tried to reach Orbán by phone, the call was declined. Not postponed, not ignored, declined. A symbolic move akin to a diplomatic freeze. A government spokesman stated unambiguously, "Hungary will not be lectured." The statement revealed the deep erosion of trust between Germany and Hungary. Across Europe, a sense of growing uncertainty spread. Citizens saw an EU unable to respond with unity during its gravest crisis in years, entangled instead in internal power struggles. Orbán's silent protest was interpreted in many countries as an expression of dissatisfaction that extended far beyond Hungary. Debates intensified. In some national parliaments, discussions arose about budgetary blockades toward Brussels, suspension of certain EU programs, or even potential new alliances if the EU's course hardened further. It was as if a single silent exit had triggered a domino effect that shook Europe profoundly. Commentators later said the moment forced Europe to look in the mirror. The reflective surface showed not unity, but an alliance fraught with tension, rivalries, and unresolved conflicts. Orbán's message was clear. The voices of the East can no longer be ignored. Whether criticized or celebrated, it did not matter. What mattered was that he exposed a fracture that had long been carefully concealed. As the dust settled and the first political analyses emerged, one thing became clear. This was not the end of a debate, but the beginning. For Orbán, the moment had passed. For Europe, a period of self-examination, and perhaps one of the greatest challenges in the history of the European Union, was beginning.